I'm Marisa Norcross.
And I'm Dave Freund, and this is The Next Page. Marisa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, as our listeners can tell, I have a cold. But I went 6 months without one, so I am not complaining, not even a little bit complaining.
Maybe it's allergies.
About my cold. You know what? I went to the doctor, and he said, no, it's a virus.
Oh, bummer.
So, yeah. But, and you know what? And this kind of reads into or kind of plays into a little bit about what Randy's post was last week.
Yes.
Was, are you taking care of yourself? Are you working yourself to exhaustion? And I know why I got sick. I know why I wasn't getting sick. I was resting well, and I was taking my airborne gummies every day, which I think is amazing. And then I went through a stretch where I traveled 2 weekends in a row, one night arriving home, wee hours of the morning, the next night traveling through the night, and I just pushed it too hard. So when we don't rest, we get sick.
Yep.
So the moral of that story is eat your gummies and get your rest.
Yep. And luckily the sun is starting to shine more, so you can get some vitamin D from the sun. And
yes,
hopefully
it's wonderful to wake up in the morning and see the sun starting to rise.
I know, it really is. So that'll help you out. So hopefully you go again several months between colds. I
hope so. If I learn to rest, I'll be fine.
Yes.
So today we're talking about outliving our usefulness. What a sobering title.
I know.
Because if we've outlived our usefulness, what's the point in being around? We're just consuming oxygen and resources from people that are useful.
Right.
Now, I'm not allocating or advocating that anybody take their own life by any means. But what really got me thinking about that and what caused me to write the post the way I did was a teaching that I did with one of our member organizations on John Maxwell's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And I was really struck by this organization that they were focused on developing not just their leadership team, but their high potential employees. So I've been doing work with them for a couple of years now, specifically with their management level people and senior leadership people. And then they said to me actually last fall, what could you do for our high potential people? And I thought, this organization gets it. They get the fact that we have to continually to grow. And I was thinking of the law of the rubber band. And the law of the rubber band says that, a rubber band is only useful if it's stretched.
Right.
And we're the same. If we're not stretched, if we're not growing, we aren't useful. We literally outlive our usefulness because change is inevitable and growth is optional. And that was really the premise of the article/blog post that I wrote. Because if we're not growing, we're just mediocre, and people don't pay for average. I mean, if you think about it, what kind of restaurants do you want to go to? You want to go to restaurants that are special. When you spend time with people, you want to spend time with people in meaningful relationships where we can mutually benefit from one another. And you and I talked before we started the recording about a statistic that was really frightening to you if you look at it this way, that in a 2010 survey, 1/3 of high school graduates will never read a book after high school. And sadly, 42% of college students will never read a book after they graduate.
I can't believe that.
Isn't that horrible? Now, I'm hoping that it's changed by 2008, but that was a 2010 study that was cited in the book that I was training from.
Yeah.
One of John's books. And then another note that I put here was, according to psychologist Abraham Maslow, if you plan on being anything less than what you are capable of being, you will probably be unhappy all the days of your life. What a tragedy.
Yeah. But it's true.
Exactly. If you're not being all you can be, so to speak, and I'm not trying to, make an ad for the Marine Corps or whatever, but you're wasting potential that will never ever be brought to fruition, so to speak. It's like a seed for a mighty plant or a mighty tree, like an acorn that never gets planted will never grow into an oak tree. What a tragedy.
Right. And so, what we really need to do is stretch ourselves and
right.
And and it doesn't have, it's not like, okay, you have to go back to school to get your master's degree.
Right.
It's little things. I mean, like we even said, like picking up a book, any kind of book, right? I mean, that's what the study even refers to, is really any book, not necessarily a professional development book versus a novel versus whatever, just any kind of book. So I know you did some research to look at how can you grow, specifically professionally.
I did. And this was if people, there's no excuse for people not being able to do this, because literally it was sit down and Google search, how do I grow professionally? There's article after article after article that's out there. So the first one that I clicked on, top 10 ways to help yourself grow professionally, even without the support of your company. So if you say, well, my company isn't growing me, so,
right.
If your company's not growing, it's like so-and-so doesn't make me happy. You have to take charge of your own life. If you've got a boss who's a jerk, okay, I'm sorry. Find ways to either work in that environment to the way that's the best of your ability, or find a different place to work. There's too many people surrendering themselves to a victim mentality. So the top 10 ways, even if your company doesn't support you, find a way to take a class. Now, I haven't checked recently, but when I was a bit younger, now I realize it's 56, that this is some years ago, there were all kinds of classes offered at libraries, at BOCES, at community centers that didn't cost much of anything. Take a class. Take an online class.
Well, I think I've talked about this before too. There's these things called massively open online courses.
Yes.
And like I remember I did some of them through, I believe the website I used was Coursera or something like that.
Yep.
But there's a bunch of different places, and you can take these online classes through universities, like Duke and Harvard and really anywhere.
Sure.
And it costs nothing, and you can do as much or as little as you want. So if you only want to participate in the the video lectures but not do the exams, that's up to you. If you want to read the book but not do the lectures and write the papers, you can do that.
Right.
And then you can also, if you're someone who likes the in-person experience, you mentioned libraries, but you can also audit classes at local schools. So
sure,
locally we're really close to Lemoyne College, and I know I actually looked into it recently because my sister, who is a student up there, was taking something that I just thought was fascinating. It was I think it was technically a science class, and so it's not like I would need it for any kind of degree, but I could have audited it for I think about maybe like $100 for the semester.
Wow.
And I could go and be part of the class and be part of the discussion and participate in all of the papers, exams, reading, all of that. Unfortunately, it happened to be a midday class, and I couldn't justify leaving work for that.
Right.
But there are plenty of opportunities to do that. Like you said, at no cost. It's not like you have to plan to spend college tuition to go back and take classes.
Exactly. And recently, EntreLeadership, which is one of Dave Ramsey's organizations, did an all-day seminar with guest speakers, and if I'm not mistaken, the cost for that was like $25 for a whole day of seminars. So take a class. The second one was teach yourself a skill, any kind of skill. One of the things that I've noticed lately is in my coaching sessions, I'm trying to write faster. And when I was in elementary school, I struggled with learning to write cursive. So I decided to just do, printing instead. Well, you can't print as fast as you can write cursive.
It's true.
So I was actually thinking, maybe I need to teach myself again to write cursive. Because as I started writing cursive, and also what I've noticed is with tablets, the Apple Pencil has a great feel, but you almost need to stay in contact with the page. So it's perfect for cursive. It's not for lettering, right, or printing. So I'm thinking maybe I just need to teach myself that again, because certain letters I forgot how to write because I haven't written them for 40 some years.
Right, and so that'll make you more efficient. It'll teach you a new skill that you can use in other ways, but it'll also teach you things like determination. You'll
Yes.
exercise parts of your brain that you haven't used in a long time. So,
right.
Commitment, dedication, determination, things like that will all be exercised, which will
Right.
impact other areas of your life, not just the ability to write faster.
Exactly. The third item on their list was volunteer, and I know that our friends over at PEB, Partners for Education and Business, are always looking for mentors
Mm-hmm.
for the P-TECH programs, both in Auburn and here in Syracuse. What a beautiful way to grow is to help mentor young people by so volunteer with your church, volunteer in your schools.
Yep.
My wife actually worked, I think she worked the volunteer thing into a career type of thing because she volunteered in school so much when my kids were there that the next thing I knew she was given a job,
Mm-hmm.
which she loves. So master an online tool. There's all kinds of online content. Seek out people who are on a career path you aspire to. And that's one of the phrases that I use a lot is, if you're the smartest person in the class, you're in the wrong class.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know I stole that from John Maxwell, but so look for those people, attend events at MACNY, our council events, and find people that are a few years ahead of you, and just seek them out, have lunch with them, ask them things,
Mm-hmm.
shadow a colleague, find a mentor, and then we get to read.
Mm-hmm.
This was something I shared with you before we started recording. Almost all of these lists had reading as a key thing
Mm-hmm.
for growth. And one of the things that I learned years ago, a couple years ago actually, from my son Tim was Tim is a tremendous reader. He reads all the time. Actually, all of our kids were pretty good readers. And now, a lot of times it isn't a hard copy book. It's an audio book, as he's doing things where he doesn't need to concentrate on. He'll listen to audiobooks. But he said, don't just read leadership books. He said, read other kind of books. And I said, like what? And he said, well, you're doing a lot more writing, so I'd suggest you read this and this author's work. It will help you write better. Then I found that I loved history more than I even thought I did. And so just the idea of reading, find an author you like, read their books. Find a subject you like, read their books. And if you're not a person, so one of the things I learned as I got older was that when I was in school, I had learning disabilities, and I was not a good reader. And I had to find ways to read better. So the audiobooks work really well for me, because I do still read the hard copy books, but the audiobooks, especially if it's not if it's just like a history type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
very easy to do, and they aren't expensive, because if you have a library card, which you can get free, you can listen to audiobooks that you download from the library.
Yep. And same thing for ebooks from the library. That's primarily what I do.
Right. Yes. Ebooks.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. I feel like there are so many opportunities to read now. You can purchase books. You can download books. You can borrow books from the library. You can borrow audiobooks. Right. You can subscribe to Audible. So whether you're a tactile learner, a auditory learner, however you prefer, there are so many options for reading. And I just love reading too sometimes, because you'll hear a word that you haven't heard in a while, and you're kind of like, I forgot about that word. I'm going to start using that. Just little things like that trigger your brain in ways that normal conversation and normal day-to-day work will not do for you.
Absolutely. What a great way to expand your vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're going to sound smarter, because you will be getting smarter. So we use so few words in our daily conversations or our conversational English, but what a great way to expand your ability to communicate with people. So I can't stress reading enough. It's the least expensive way to learn.
And we're trying to reinforce that at MACNY too.
Right.
We kind of did it without even thinking about the importance of it on growth and stretching our minds. But we've got, with our individual membership program, we have the 21 Laws Mastermind group, which goes through the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership with you once a month. And then I've got my leadership book study group that is kind of a subgroup of your group. We were born out of your group last year. And we read we're reading, I think, about 5 books this year, maybe 5 or 6 books this year.
That's awesome.
And we meet monthly as well. And it is a good opportunity because oftentimes too, we read, but we don't tell anyone about it and we don't talk about it. And when we talk about it, it reinforces what we've learned.
Exactly. I actually have, there's a gentleman that's really active. His company's super active in MACNY and taking the trainings that we offer. And he has actually said that he takes the podcast that you and I record along with the weekly blog post that gets emailed out and distributes it to his supervisory team, and then they discuss it.
Wow.
So they're using that as a learning tool. And Marisa, do you remember offhand how many courses MACNY offers free of charge to the individual members? I don't remember exactly.
I want to say...
Is it 6 or 7?
I was going to say 6.
Okay.
I think it's 6, and then we offer them each multiple times a year so that if someone has a scheduling conflict, they can, hop into a different date.
So there again, that's if you're an individual member, that's free.
Right, and they're short. They're like 2 hours. 2 hours. Yeah, right. I think they're all 2 hours.
Yep.
Yep.
So again, that reading, and I think is one of the things that I love is that I know you're big about this, and my wife was with our kids, and my kids are with their kids, is reading with your children. And I remember a lot of folks know that my grandson Silas was born premature, so he spent 108 days in the NICU at Akron Children's Hospital. And I remember my daughter and son-in-law reading books to Silas while he was in that incubator at the NICU, just to get, of course, they were both teachers, so they were really big on it.
Yeah.
But reading is huge. Attending a conference, finding them, whether they're MACNY or not. Don't neglect your soft skills. Too many people think they just, it needs to be technical stuff. No. Develop your soft skills, your ability to communicate, your ability to manage your emotional intelligence. That's a huge one. Learn your triggers. Being able to manage yourself emotionally can have the greatest impact on your career. And it's oftentimes neglected by people. So that was the first 10 that I found in one site. Then another site, Inc. Magazine, had done an article with 6 ways. Take any available training courses your company offers. Here we go. Read books. Ask your manager for feedback. That's huge. So a lot of folks say, well, my company does a really bad job with performance appraisals. Well, that's no surprise because most companies do. Very few companies do a great job in employee development. And the ones that are doing a better job are thriving. So you may have to ask your boss on a regular basis, hey, how am I doing? What could I improve on? Are there skills that I need to improve on? Let your company know that you want more. I'm thinking back of my days of running Self-Lock screw products. I would have loved it, and I did love it, whenever I had people come up and say, what else can I learn? What else could I do? I want to do more. Because there's too many people that just want to skate by and do, you used to have a video we showed where somebody said, I do my 8 and I hit the gate, so to speak. No, we need folks that really, really, really want to achieve things. Ask to be given special projects. Always be open to taking on new tasks. And, a lot of people, again, are trying to run away from opportunities and from work. Then Entrepreneur Magazine had 5 things to grow professionally. Take on new challenges. Read popped up. Invest in your learning. And that's an important one. Because too many people want their learning to be spoon-fed to them. Well, my boss will tell me what I should do. My boss will give me... No. You take charge of it. And I remember once John Maxwell saying that somebody asked him, well, would you scholarship me into your coaching program? And he said no. And at first it shocked me, but he said, unless you invest, it won't mean anything to you. Right.
And that kind of comes back to what you were saying in the beginning about, it's not always something that your company is going to sponsor. And I think some of the best opportunities we have are the ones where we are personally invested. We've put our own money into it, and we're going to make sure that we get the most out of it. It's different when it's like, oh, my company's just paying for this, and I'm gonna complete it so I get the certificate, and and that's that. When you're personally invested, I think you stand to gain a lot more.
Exactly. You got to have skin in the game. Mm-hmm. I remember I had a young man in a company where I worked, and I really wanted to get him to go through a state certified apprenticeship so that he could have his journeyman's papers. It really would have been a ticket to a new career for him. And it came down to the fact that, I don't really want to go to school. I said, we're going to pay for it. It's one class per semester. I don't want to do it. Okay, fine. And he missed on a career that would have, probably doubled his income with just a little bit of effort. Yeah. Wow. Get a mentor. We always should be looking for a mentor. And I think when in my life, my biggest growth takes place when I have mentors speaking into my life. Mm-hmm. And people, some folks will say to me, so why do you keep, staying connected with your John Maxwell team? There is an expense and there's an expensive time, but it gives me access to my mentors on a weekly basis, which is priceless. There's no other way to put it. Surround yourself with like-minded peers, which I think is huge because, we, and you folks already know that listen regularly is I'm not really good with statistics, but there was actually a study done that talked about the impact the 5 closest people in our lives have on our life in terms of our mindset, our progress. We are who we hang around. Mm-hmm. That's the easiest way to put it. So if you're not happy with who you are, change who you're hanging around. Right. It's really that simple. Right. Marisa, the folks that you see coming to the book club that continued from the 21 Laws into your book club, describe for me some of the characteristics you see in these people. What are they like? I think they have a growth mindset for sure. Yep. They're interested. What I really noticed is that they're interested in not only their own professional growth, but in the development of their teams, which I think is so special and so unique. And I can hear it when we talk about each book. It's not always, okay, what am I learning, but what am I bringing to my team with this, and how am I changing the way I'm interacting with those around me? And when I hear that, it's like you really start to understand the impact that what you are doing personally, how it's affecting those around you. Right. And even some of the soft skills too. I've had people say, "Oh, this is helping me in communicating with my mother-in-law or father-in-law or whatever." And that's great because that's improving their relationships with other people. And that's, without getting too mushy over here, that's what makes the world a better place. So I think that's really great. They're committed and they're focused. Some of the things that they'll find in the books that they'll point out, it's like, I totally missed that, Yes. And that's also what makes discussing it so great is had I not been part of that group and being part of the discussion, I would have missed that really important nugget of information. So I think that's really great. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you said was a growth mindset, which was the last note that I had on my notes here. If we really don't want to outlive our usefulness, it's a mindset. Yeah. And too many, and I know the folks that are in your group, and I knew those were the answers you were going to give. They're interested in growing themselves. They're interested in growing their teams. They have this mindset of searching for excellence and achieving excellence in their life and in their relationships. Mm-hmm. And that's why that's why they are who they are, and why their companies are doing as well as they're doing. Yes. Because their companies invest in it. So again, this mindset has to be a lifelong mindset. And as I've said in the past, and again, I stole this from one of my mentors, too many people have died and they just haven't made it official. Mm-hmm. Because when we stop growing, we're pretty much dead. Because there's nothing we can offer anybody. Right. And that's really sad. And I've seen people in my life who have look for this time to just retire, so to speak. And literally what they did was give up, and then they just exist. And that's not a life. That's not living to your potential. I love people that, and it's kind of like I mentioned last week, when the podcast was Lessons from Max, that Max was a man that lived to be 93 years old, and he lived every day to the fullest. So it's a mindset. So now you're going to ask me what we're going to talk about next week, and I don't have a clue yet.
That's okay.
How's that?
That works for me.
So, but it'll be a surprise.
Good.
So anything exciting happening in your life that you want to share with people?
Well, today is my sister's 21st birthday, so I have some plans to spend the rest of my day with her, and I'm really excited to do that. We're going to the spa with our mom, and
wow,
yeah, okay. So a little girls' day, and
good.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, I want to thank you publicly, because we actually postponed the recording of the podcast till my voice was a little better and I had a little bit of energy. So I appreciate you pushing this onto your weekend. But nothing. Okay. I'm going to try to just a few little chores and get ready for next week. So good. We need you to get some rest. Yeah, I have to start heeding my own advice. So have a wonderful time with the ladies in your family. Thank you. And we want to encourage people, again, subscribe, give us a rating, give us a review, send us your thoughts, your ideas, things you'd like us to cover. We're always appreciative when we get that kind of feedback, because it helps us make sure that this podcast is something that's meaningful for everyone. So with that, I'm Dave Freund. I'm Marisa Norcross. And this was The Next Page.